Picture this. You plant literally a million trees thinking, hey, we're saving the environment, we're making our city absolutely beautiful, only to realize years later that you have accidentally unleashed an ecological hazard. Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the wild, frankly cautionary tale of the Conocarpus tree. We're looking at how this plant, which was once the absolute darling of urban planners, ended up becoming a strictly banned menace across several Indian states. So how exactly does that happen? How does a plant go from being the literal centerpiece of massive government plantation drives to being put on a blacklist? Well, to figure out the true role of Conocarpus in our cities, we really need to look past its pretty green canopy and dig into the actual science of what it does to the environment around it. Section 1. A Greenbelt Miracle? The Initial Urban Promise. The story of the Conocarpus is a classic textbook case of perceived benefits clashing hard with hidden ecological costs. At first glance, city developers thought they'd found a miracle worker. I mean, it gave them rapid growth, instant shade, and this beautiful year-round green canopy. But right underneath that lush exterior, it was hiding invasive, incredibly thirsty, and even toxic traits that wouldn't actually show up for years. Planners really thought they had a resilient champion on their hands. You see, the Conocarpus, specifically the erectus and lensifolius varieties, is originally native to the shorelines of the Americas and Africa. Because it evolved to survive in brutal, salty coastal conditions, it is incredibly heat tolerant. It can thrive in harsh, saline soils or even right on top of sewage water. So when officials needed to develop greenbelts in hot, arid urban spaces, this tree just seems like an unstoppable force. It felt like it could survive literally anything. Section 2. The Thirst for Groundwire. Okay, let's look below the soil, because the very traits that made this tree such a great survivor turned it into a massive problem. The aggressive, fast-paced growth comes with a really steep hidden price tag. You simply don't get rapid growth without a massive intake of energy and water, and that leads to some absolutely severe issues underground. And that brings us to a huge issue, the rapid depletion of groundwater. Studies out of New Delhi revealed a staggering number. In just its first 2 years, the Conocarpus demands roughly 30 to 35% more water than our native tree species like neem or tamarind. Think about that for a second. In cities that are already struggling with severe water scarcity, planting giant swaths of these trees is basically actively draining our most critical groundwater reserves. It's wild. And the physical toll of all that thirst is pretty crazy, because those roots are so desperate for moisture, they grow completely blindly and aggressively. They will literally crack right through concrete pavements, they infiltrate and bust open vital freshwater pipelines, tear up underground telecom cables, and completely clog up city sewage systems. Basically, the tree is eating the city's infrastructure just to sustain its own growth. Obviously, definitely not what city planners signed up for. Section 3. Allelopathy, the chemical warfare. Now we are getting to the scientific core of why this plant is absolutely not recommended for greenbelt development anymore. We have to talk about a phenomenon called allopathy. What is that? Well, it's essentially botanical chemical warfare. The Conocarpus doesn't just passively compete for space or sunlight like a normal tree. Nope, it actively releases biochemicals into the environment specifically to suppress and harm the germination and survival of any plants trying to grow nearby. You can actually see the visual proof of this chemical warfare right here from recent botanical studies. These charts clearly demonstrate how the tree's allelopathic properties negatively impact the germination and growth of neighboring crops. When researchers took aqueous extracts from the stem, leaf, and bark of the Conocarpus and applied them to seeds of wheat, barley, and spinach, they saw a massive drop in radical and hypocotyl growth. The tree literally stunts the root and shoot development of anything around it. So how exactly does it pull this off? Well, it pumps specific phytochemicals, most notably tannins, phenols, and quinones, directly into the dirt. These compounds basically create a toxic, hostile zone. Over time, they permanently alter the soil chemistry so it only favors the Conocarpus itself, making it basically impossible for native flora to even take root, let alone survive. And the result of this intense allopathic effect is what ecologists call a green desert. I mean, sure, the area might look lush and green from a distance, but biologically, it's a dead zone. It creates this dangerous monoculture with zero native biodiversity. In fact, cattle will actually go out of their way to avoid eating the leaves, and native bees and pollinators pretty much ignore the flowers altogether. It just completely wrecks the existing food web. Section 4. Health and infrastructure toll. But the collateral damage of this invasive plant goes way beyond just the soil and the bugs. It extends directly to human health. And honestly, this was the major tipping point for civic authorities. As renowned botanist Minu H. Parabia warned, these types of trees are dangerous to human health. The scientific community started ringing the alarm bells, loud and clear. Conservation biologists and medical professionals started documenting the severe direct impacts this non-native tree was having on our respiratory systems. The biggest culprit in all of this? The pollen. During the winter season when this plant flowers, these massive urban green walls release a shockingly heavy load of pollen right into the air we breathe. For vulnerable populations, this triggers incredibly severe allergies. What might start as a pesky cough or cold quickly spirals into exacerbated asthma symptoms. And when you have literally millions of these trees planted in a densely populated city, well, you've got a genuine public health crisis on your hands. Section 5. The return to maintenance. Faced with all these undeniable issues, the cracked infrastructure, the drained groundwater, and the very real health risks, state authorities had to make a dramatic pivot. You can see this rapid shift in policy over just a handful of years. Between 2016 and 2018, we saw massive plantation drives like the Mission Million Trees in Gujarat. But the consequences caught up fast. By September 2023, the Gujarat Forest Department had to issue a complete ban on the species. And looking ahead to 2025, the Tamil Nadu government is taking it even further. Not just banning it, but mandating the active, physical removal of existing Conocarpus plants from all public spaces. The new mandate across these states is incredibly clear, and let's be honest, it's a huge relief. We have to tear down these toxic, invasive green walls and reclaim our cities. The entire focus has thankfully shifted back to replanting indigenous, native trees. You know, the kind of trees that actually support local food webs, bring back the birds and the butterflies, and hold the soil together without guzzling all our precious groundwater. So as we completely rethink how we plan our urban spaces, it leaves us with one really big final question to chew on. Are fast-growing exotic species ever truly worth the hidden risks to our native, balanced ecosystems? It's definitely something we absolutely must consider so we don't repeat the mistakes of the Conocarpus tree. Well, thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.